Welcome to the Rodell Cast, where we discuss issues related to public education and the workforce with guests from around the state and around the world. My name is Paul Herdman, and this podcast is part of a series in an OECD project called Career Pathways in a Rapidly Changing World. We are looking at the transition from senior secondary school or high school to whatever young people decide to do next. We're looking specifically at high school programs that build meaningful work-based learning experiences into their general education courses to better prepare those students to make more informed choices. This story is about Scotland and its Foundation Apprenticeship. A couple of notes. First, in a diverse country of over 5 million people filled with mountains, islands, and beautiful cities, what follows is just a snapshot, a slice of their story. And second, in comparison to some of the other countries in this project, like Canada and the US, when it comes to education policy, the Scottish government, in coordination with local authorities, plays a more significant role. In this episode, we'll hear from a leader in the country's National Skills Agency, a major employer, and some students. A through line for me in this visit in June of 2023 was the coherence from national policy all the way through to the needs of employers and students. Here's Graeme Hendry from Skills Development Scotland.
Graeme, just thank you so much for joining us today and for the amazing trip you helped me organize in the last week or so. I get a great sense of what you're doing as a country and in particular with the Foundation Apprenticeship, and wanted to set the table a little bit about what Skills Development Scotland does.
Skills Development Scotland is Scotland's national skills agency, and our primary roles are around about providing careers information, advice and guidance throughout all our secondary schools in Scotland, so that's to all school leavers. We also fund modern apprenticeships, and we're also involved in the delivery of foundation and graduate apprenticeships. So that's in Scotland, we talk about that as a full apprenticeship family. We have other parts of our business involved in skills planning. And skills planning is about taking the labour market information and intelligence and making sure it's out there and available to us, but all our stakeholders, all the partners in the skills system to shape what they do. And that's a key part of what we do as well. As well as that, we currently also have a standards and frameworks team who are involved in ensuring employers are central to the design of apprenticeships. Within all of that, my role and my team's role is we work with the stakeholders who are involved in the delivery of foundation and graduate apprenticeships. And for foundation apprenticeships, because they're in our school system, there's a complex stakeholder mix. You've got schools, you've got colleges, you've got independent providers, you've got local authorities, as councils who are also involved in shaping it, you've got employers, you've got government influence. We've got groups called Developing the Young Workforce in Scotland, which are again employer-led. And my team's role is to almost act as a glue to bring those different parts of the systems together to try and make this all happen. Now, some of it will happen, but sometimes it's about just making sure the right partnerships are in place to keep it happening. And we do a lot of that work. I also work a lot with government, with other senior stakeholders round about how we are going to shape the system going forward.
One particular initiative SDS has played a leadership role in establishing is the Foundation Apprenticeship for high school students.
The origins of the Foundation Apprenticeship came from Scotland looking to learn from what works well in other high-performing skills economies. So we had a look around other parts of the world whereby there was high-performing economies with high outcomes for learners, and what were the common themes in them. And one of the common themes in them is alignment between employers, work-based learning, and the school system. And what we want to do was learn from that, but not copy it. So we tried to take aspects of it whereby you would embed elements of work-based learning in the school system. And one of the ways in which we've done that is through the Foundation Apprenticeship. So the Foundation Apprenticeship has been around since 2015. And at that stage, we were pulling in as pilots and just starting to scale it. And it's gone in scale from around 300 young people involved in 2015 to around 5,000 young people who will start one this year. And in terms of our context of size. So Scotland has a population of 5 million and there's around 50,000 young people in our school every year who could potentially be involved in foundation apprenticeships. We've really grown that quite considerably. The way in which it works for an individual, so a foundation apprenticeship is a school-based subject and it sits in the senior phase of school. So in the last few years of your school stage. And in Scotland, that's predominantly aimed at young people who will be 15 to 17 when they start. Sometimes by the time they leave and they finish, they might be 18, but usually be between 15 and 17 when they start. And in most of our schools, the young person will be picking 5 subjects at that stage. And the aim is that one of those subjects could be a foundation apprenticeship. So they would do 4 other subjects, usually English, maths, and then it could be anything else from physics, computing, languages. But we would also like them to consider a foundation apprenticeship as one of them. They're delivered over either 1 or 2 years. Because of having the work-based element within them, they're quite large qualifications. So they were initially designed as 2 years, but some people are delivering them over 1 year, whereby they double up the learning within it. Now, for those undertaking a 1 year course, the way that would work is that usually you'd have 1 day a week learning the theory, and that could be done either in your school or with a college or with an independent provider. And you'd have 1 day a week with an employer demonstrating competence. And in there, you're demonstrating the competencies that align with modern apprenticeships, so that post-school employed options. Just to reiterate, foundation apprenticeships are school-based subjects, so nobody's employed whilst they're doing them. It's a subject to pick at school. As a big employer in Scotland, we in SDS take foundation apprentices on placement with us. And the way it works for us as an employer is that they come in every Thursday during the school term. We will then set with them tasks and work in relation to what they do. The framework that we support in Skills Development Scotland is business administration. So they'll come in and they'll be involved in supporting our business administration roles. Foundation apprenticeships are designed alongside our other apprenticeships. So they've got components and units in alignment into them. So is that if a young person wants to go down that route, they've got a head start. They've already got some of that work-based skills. They can go in there. But we were also very careful to make sure the foundation apprenticeships don't put people down a tram line. They don't say, if you pick this, you must go down this road, because there's as much to be gained from doing a foundation apprenticeship in, say, engineering, because you've got an interest in it, and you go and do it, and you complete the qualification, and then decide you don't want to go into an engineering career, because you could then use that skills that you've got from that to go on to another area, but you've not left school, started a job in an area, and found that it's not for you. So there's real benefits to be had from doing it during your school phase. It also supports people to go into universities, colleges, because the work-based element and the skills that you gain from there round about understanding the context of our workplace, the problem solving that comes with it, the engagement with different groups, being seen more as an employee than as a student is going to benefit you whether you go straight into employment or go into further study and then into employment, because ultimately people are going to go into employment. So we're trying to get them the skills to support that.
To get a perspective for how the Foundation Apprenticeship model played out for students, I had the chance to speak to dozens of current students in Aberdeen and Glasgow. But I decided to focus on 2 alums of the Foundation Apprenticeship, Abbie and Becca, because I thought their insights into how this experience informs their current work was particularly helpful. Note that when they refer to hires, they mean one of the 5 courses they need to take in order to access higher education. Here's Becca.
Hi everyone, I'm Becca. I am now a 3rd year paediatric and mental health nursing student in Robert Gordon's University, and I did the Health and Social Care Foundation Apprenticeship in my 6th year.
I'm Abbie. I have just finished my 3rd year studying law at Robert Gordon University, and in my 6th year I did the Children and Young People Foundation Apprenticeship.
Maybe just walk us through how you made your initial choice back when you were in secondary school about what placement you would even choose, because you're Abbie in a different field than your placement. So you obviously went through a process of trying to figure out what you wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So because the foundation apprenticeships were new when we were in 6th year, we were like the guinea pigs, so to say. We didn't have as many offered to us as what you get now. So we had accounting, the healthcare one, and the children and young people one. So it was just those three to choose from. And I already knew that I wanted to study law. And I had all the grades that I needed to go into uni. So I was just doing 6th year just to get more qualifications, and just because I loved school and I wasn't quite ready to leave. So I chose the Children and Young People Foundation Apprenticeship because I thought it would be really useful when it came to family law, because I knew that a lot of what that would entail would be dealing with children from different backgrounds and vulnerable children and things like that. So many people applying to uni wouldn't have that on their qualifications and their CV, so it would really make me stand out. It would give me something unique to talk about, and it was the equivalent of 2 hires, so that was 2 additional grades for one subject, and it didn't have an exam. And for me, that was the biggest, most important factor, because my mental health really struggled with exams. It just wasn't for me. I couldn't handle it. To get 2 hires without doing an exam, it really appealed to me.
How about you, Becca?
Yeah, so I wanted to go into healthcare and nursing before I chose to do the foundation apprenticeship. So when it came up, I just thought it was a fantastic area. It was exactly what I was looking for. And it's really difficult to find healthcare environments that students can go and work in and volunteer in or anything like that. It's really quite difficult. So having a placement that I could go to twice a week, every week, was really appealing. And when it came to interviews, much as what Abbie said there, it gave me a lot of experience to talk about. And while a lot of my colleagues, when they were asked more hypothetical questions of what would you do in this situation, or if you came across this, what would your actions be, a lot of the times I've been in similar situations that I could pull from and reflect on my own experiences from that and provide a really comprehensive answer to questions that a lot of children and young people my age who are going into university or college or whatever it may be didn't have. So that was a real bonus for me, and having that kind of practical opportunity was such a benefit to me moving forward. And as Abbie said already, that higher qualification is really beneficial, particularly for students who, as you say, maybe aren't keen on exams, get quite nervous, or are really intelligent and practical, but exams are just not their way of learning and not their way of being assessed. So that continual assessment highlights so many different types of learners. And our teacher, who we learnt about prior to taking the classes, she was highly knowledgeable in her field and made it really easy to adapt the way in which we learn and adapt the way in which we could be assessed to make sure that we could pass to the best of our abilities, but also have a great understanding of the topic.
2 of the challenges with building in meaningful work-based learning into the traditional academic curriculum are, 1, parents' concerns about how it might weaken their child's chances of attending university, and 2, simply how to fit those experiences into the timetable or class schedule. Here's Abbie, followed by Becca, on their parents' perceptions.
She was so pushing it. She was like, I think this is the perfect thing for you, because at that point I had been referred to NHS therapy to help with just my mental health, especially because of school. So she was really pushing it, and she thought, this is going to be the perfect thing for you because you'll get this amazing experience and qualifications that you need without having to sacrifice my mental health.
Yeah, so I suppose it was both sides of it. So when I'd initially told them kind of subjects that I wanted to do for that year, so in addition to the foundation apprenticeship, I did 2 advanced hires, a higher and a Scottish baccalaureate. So it was quite a lot of workload. So initially when I'd said to my mum, oh, we've got this foundation apprenticeship, you have these placements and everything, initially it's maybe a bit too much for your workload, but actually when we spoke about it more and looked at all the information that we were given, it was so perfectly suited to what I wanted to do and had so many opportunities. And the school were amazing, the teachers were amazing, and making sure that it fit really efficiently with the rest of our kind of course calendar and our timetable meant that we didn't have to miss any other classes. I never missed any of my advanced hires or any other classes for this foundation apprenticeship for either the theory or the placement side of it.
One of the strengths of the Foundation Apprenticeship is the integration of academic and applied learning. Here's Becca, followed by Abbie, explaining how this integration played out in her work placement.
Yeah, so my placement, I worked with children who have a vast range of additional needs within a more educational environment. So every day it was quite a volatile environment. Things would be perfect one minute and totally disastrous the next. But it's just about how you're able to adapt to those different situations. There was one day where my assessor from the course actually was in assessing me, and we had one girl, unfortunately, just was very overwhelmed and had a wee bit of a meltdown. So I felt from the kind of theory side of it had been ingrained in me, all these different safeguarding, communication, simple things like getting down to their level that maybe you don't think about every day. But in that situation, because we'd spoken about it so much in class and our teachers were so great at giving us examples from their own practice, I was able to link that very quickly and go into kind of almost an autopilot of, this is what I've been taught, this is what I'm going to do, and adapt to that situation and that person. In that situation, we were heading outside and that person didn't want to go outside, and there was a whole role around that. But using very simple skills and breaking it down from what we've been taught, we got outside, she had a great time, she had fun, and my assessor recognised even the simplest of skills from that. And it's skills and processes that even now, as a third year student who's going to be qualifying in the next year or so, I use every day and just don't even think about anymore, because it's been so ingrained and so beneficial that now it's just part of everyday life.
If you could expound on that a little bit, just talk about how the class experience connected with the field experience, how that kind of interaction worked.
Yeah, the class experience and your work experience went totally hand in hand. So we all had these massive big binders that were given to us at the start of the course, and we would, you could sit in your work experience and you could see the things unfolding as you learned them. We learned a lot about different development theories for different children, how different children's brains grow and how their motor skills develop and things. And you could literally see all of these different theories in front of you at how every child was different and everybody learned in different ways. So it was perfect to be able to see how your theories were actually being placed into real life. So yeah, they went perfectly hand in hand. It was really good.
Throughout my conversations with students, I found that they learned quite a bit about the field they were exploring, but as much or more about themselves. Here's Abbie.
I learned my learning style because obviously I'd been doing years of exams and it just wasn't working for me. It was in the sense getting all my grades and everything and I was doing well, but it wasn't working for me as a person. It was making me so unwell. But this, I was never happier in school than I was doing the Foundation Apprenticeship. I was so happy because I was enjoying learning. I was enjoying being assessed, which is something I never thought I would say.
For Becca, the Foundation Apprenticeship helped her see herself as a leader, and that realization informs her current work as a nursing student.
I learned a lot about how much of a leader I actually am. At school, I was this kind of leadership roles as being a prefect or kind of roles like that. But I don't think I realised how much of a leader that I could be until I was in the kind of position where I was leading a classroom of children with additional needs and arranging activities. And while I was arranging it as a group, I was also managing the individual aspects of it and adapting to each person's care and all these different skills that, yes, I think sometimes, particularly when maybe we're in latter years of high school or academy, sometimes leadership is very kind of one strong, whereas I learned from the Foundation Apprenticeship that there's so many things that come into being a leader, and that just because I'm not always the loudest in the room, or maybe sometimes I am, I can be a really good leader regardless, and I'm really good at adapting to work with a team and bringing out people's strengths even when they don't necessarily see it themselves. And that's something now as a student nurse I really pride myself on. We spoke a lot in the Foundation Apprenticeship about putting yourself in other people's shoes and whatever situation you're in is seeing the other side of it. And now that's something I do every day.
One of the benefits I heard throughout my conversations with students is the importance of transferable or meta skills. Skills like being able to problem solve. Both Becca and Abbie not only demonstrated these skills, but could see them in other students. Here's Becca.
There's so many benefits, and there's not many opportunities that children and young people have to do something so specific to the career that they want to go into, but yet gain so many soft transferable skills as they move forward. I think Abbie's a prime example of that. While her kind of course doesn't directly relate to what she's doing now, the amount of skills that she's brought forward from that is amazing. And that goes for all the foundation apprenticeships, no matter where you're sitting in what kind of role and where you're going moving forward. You can tell the difference between students who have had that experience before and that extra bit of self-confidence and motivation to go out and study, organise your workload, manage it well, and be able to thrive in all aspects of it. And the amount of experiences that I've gained from it continue to benefit me now, even though, as you say, it's years down the line. But there isn't a factor of my education at this point that I wouldn't attribute to the Foundation Apprenticeship.
Having shared the framing for Foundation Apprenticeships and the experience of some students, let's hear from an employer. To help shed light on this, I spoke with Kevin Kelman from the NHS, or National Health Service, an organization that employs approximately 160,000 people nationwide. In his new role as the first director of Academy, Learning, and Innovation, he works with stakeholders to improve education and learning using technology and innovation to create a better future for health and social care in Scotland. Here's Kevin on his unique background and some of the challenges they face.
I'm a primary teacher originally, but latterly in the schools and education system, Andrew, I was the equivalent of a superintendent in the States. I was superintendent of Stirling Council with responsibility for the school system and the social care system there. But during the pandemic, I moved across to Scotland's National Health Service, which is a public health service, and established NHS Scotland Academy, which is really trying to support some of the workforce challenges that we have in the health and social care system in Scotland. I'm sure it's similar to America, that we have a real challenge in terms of drawing the right people into the right jobs in the right places across the country. And that's exacerbated in some of our remote and rural communities like Aberdeenshire.
What are the pain points? What are the things that are happening at this point in Scotland?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge for us is that a lot of people that are in the healthcare system don't need to remain in the healthcare system. They could be back in their communities, but we don't have enough individuals across the country that can deliver social care services to release those individuals back into their local communities. So it's called delayed discharge is the technical term. So we've got a lot of people in our hospitals that can't be discharged because the support back in the community is not there for them. And as a result, that minimizes people being able to get surgical procedures done, because basically there's not the beds around for them to be able to recover from those surgical procedures is one of the fundamental issues. Mm-hmm. But in addition to that, some job roles, for example, nursing, there's been a sharp decline in the number of individuals that want to move on to undergraduate nursing programs. So we've just embarked on an international recruitment campaign to bring nurses from different parts of the world to Scotland. Similarly, for the first time, we've seen a decline in young people applying to undergraduate medicine in Scotland. So there's been a 20% decline this year. And the evidence shows if someone from Scotland applies to do undergraduate medicine in Scotland, then they're much more likely to remain in Scotland as a doctor. And back to that point about remote and rural communities already being compromised in some ways with our GPs, so primary care. There's, just a lot of consideration being given to how we can align what's happening in schools much better to what the requirements are within the health and social care system.
To address this shortage, Kevin saw the need to build a coherent set of connections for students between the education and healthcare systems.
So I think with the likes of Andrew's help, that is developing in ways that are really quite new and different. So I think what we had was probably underdeveloped opportunities to make it even more cohesive for young people. Kind of term that we're using a lot more is trying to develop cohesive learning provision, so that basically if you start on a learner pathway in school, that can be built on into the world of work. And that's what Andrew and the team are, I think, doing really well in Aberdeenshire, starting to think about how young people can start on that post-school career in the senior phase, and recognizing that it's the start of a pathway and it's okay if you change part of the way through that, but it's trying to make those connections between school and the world of work.
Kevin explained how he saw labor market information informing what he calls the climbing frames through an employee's career.
So ultimately, I think that's what equips people to work in this kind of space. And where we've got to, we stick with Aberdeenshire and NHS Grampian, is trying to have really sophisticated workforce data, so that basically the health and social care system can as accurately as possible identify what they think the needs are, and then sharing that with the education sector, so that then we can try and make sure that we are creating the appropriate pathways to support learners on those journeys. And one of the things I talk about is climbing frames for individuals to start at the bottom in entry-level roles and work their way up to some of the most senior roles.
As a former educator in this healthcare role, he saw the need to reimagine how we think about preparing our young people.
And I need to think carefully how I say this. Maybe the way that the school system is constructed at the moment, the focus is on subject areas rather than skills that young people require to flourish post-school. And I think we've got a bit of work to do in that area. And I say that with the greatest of respect to teaching colleagues who have been used to working in a particular way for a long period of time. But I do think we need to reimagine some of the ways that schools and local employers work together. Now, recognising that's really difficult given the fiscal situation that we're in at the moment, but the more that we can try and build connectivity between the school system and the skills system, the better. Yeah, so I think for me it's about being able to apply your learning. So rather than learning being something that you absorb by being in a classroom and you're taught in a kind of traditional way, the more that we can support learners to apply their learning.
The framework for Foundation Apprenticeships seems to resonate with students and employers, but with less than 5% of students engaged in them in 2023, there's still plenty of room for growth. When I asked Graeme about his vision for the future, he echoed some key themes that I'd heard elsewhere in my travels: an interest in creating parity of esteem between academic and vocational pathways, and the infusion of meaningful work-based learning experiences embedded into the educational experiences of all students.
Yeah, so one of the areas we want to see going forward is in reflecting on the reviews that have been published and the reviews that have been published so far, is about how do we, in particular, from a foundation apprenticeship perspective, further embed the concept of work-based learning within the schools. So we've had good growth since Foundation Apprenticeships came out, but we're ready to learn from that, and we're ready to evolve that as the senior phase of schools develops. So one of the key reviews will look at the senior phase of schools, and one of the key aspects of it is around about ensuring greater parity of esteem between what are seen as traditional academic subjects and more vocational routes. And as this is implemented, we want to see every learner in the senior phase of our schools have access to meaningful and high quality work-based learning as part of their school offer. Exactly how that will work can vary between individuals, but everyone should have access to that offer. So for many, this could mean a foundation apprenticeship as they evolve, and they will evolve as part of the policy landscape. For others, it could be access to more project-based and career experiential learning with employers as part of it at the time that's right for them. So more flexibility, more personalisation, less rigidity. We've got a lot of great work going on in the schools at the moment in Scotland, building engagement with employers, but what we really want to do is move beyond what has happened in the past, building what's worked on that, but make it more deep and meaningful and a greater quality of opportunity for our learners.
Thank you for listening to this podcast on Scotland's Foundation Apprenticeship, and I look forward to sharing more stories from Australia, Scotland, Canada, and the US in the weeks and months ahead. If you want more information on this project, please visit us at rodelde.org. A special thanks to Caitlin Mooney, David Coyne, and Graeme Hendry at Skills Development Scotland, Andrew Ritchie and Mary O'Brien at Aberdeenshire Council, and the educators and students at Robert Gordon University, as well as Kirkintilloch and Barrhead Secondary Schools for their time and insights. This episode was produced and edited by Alejandra Villamaras and contains original music from Jesse Herdman. This larger project was done in cooperation with our team here at Rodel in Delaware and with the OECD team in Paris. None of this would have been possible without the generous support from the Carnegie Corporation of New York and the Rodel Foundation. Thank you. Until next time.